Questwise here, and this is my first impressions of Bull Run, which is a Avalon Hill game, came out in the 1980s. This is, again, part of my sort of returning to games that I've never played before, part of my midlife crisis is what I'm calling it. I've been trying to find some affordable games from the early eras of Avalon Hill, games that I've never tried before, and really enjoying them. The old hex and counter type of games. Today I have Bull Run set up. This is it takes place over one Bull Run, first Bull Run or first Manassas, depending on what side of the war you were on. But as you can see, I've got the board set up here, and it is pretty decent sized board for, I guess, for what battle you're going to be recreating here, simulating. But I just wanted to give you my first initial impressions, talk about how the board is set up and what I've learned, what I like so far about the game, and what is a little bit, I don't want to say frustrating, but a little bit of a learning curve that it is not something that you find in current everyday games. So first of all, you set up a table. Sorry for the shadow there. My light is directly above us, but you have an order of battle for each of the Union Army, and you have a Confederate order of battle as well. And you set up the Confederates first. Some of them have to be at specific locations or near specific locations, and they tend to be frozen. So I've actually placed these little white cubes on the units that are frozen and cannot move until they are sort of interacted with, or if any of the Union forces come within a certain range of them, then they can activate. So you set up the Confederate order of battle first. So I've got some Abatis markers out here, which are basically roadblocks. Doesn't really give you any indication of where to put them, so I just kind of put them at like crossroads here. I put one way over here near Sudley, because it's possible for the Union players to come over here. I should also note I'm playing the solo, so there's a little bit of cheating that goes on, I guess, in a sense, because I kind of know already where the Confederate forces are and where they've set up everything. So when I set up the Union forces, I can kind of already adhere to that, sort of already know where they're at. I put another Abatis marker here, just beyond the Stony Bridge, I believe is what that's called. And then I put another one over here, right at Blackburn's Ford as well too. So this is kind of the setup for the Confederate forces. You can't really see the faces on these, but this is Holmes' brigade, and this is Ewell's brigade. Over here at the just outside Manassas, you have this one unit that can activate on its own at the Manassas Junction, because the game is turn-based. It is time-based, so there is this time record chart. Every turn, every time the Confederates and the Union players take a turn, you mark off a half an hour, and certain things will trigger at certain times. So the Confederates will actually get reinforcements via train down this rail here into Manassas Junction at a certain time period, which fits with the historical record. So you set up the Confederates first, and then you set up all of the Union troops. They have to either draw lines of like supply lines back to either Centerville, or this hex way over here in the corner, which is CCC 35, coming in off the road, off the southern edge of the map. Or you can come in way over here by Sudley, which is why I put this Abatis marker over here. Maybe, again, when you're setting up the Union troops, you kind of already know where the Confederates are when you're playing solo. So, it's possible for my troops to come in over here, but I didn't put any over there. I kind of put a push over here. There's no real, when you're setting up the Union troops, there's no real sort of direction as to they simply have to either trace lines of command back to Centerville or this hex way over here. But other than that, they have to be 5 hexes away from any Confederate troops. And that's really the only instructions they give you. Something I appreciate about the game is that it gives you a lot of free reign to sort of set up and recreate the battle as you want. But the rule book itself does not really give you, it gives you a brief overview of what happened, why the battle's taking place, where it took place. It does give you some designer notes here on the why things are sort of laid out the way they are, but it doesn't give you any real historical sort of setup. I kind of like it, and I kind of don't like that. I kind of wish it was in the rule book as to sort of how the battle actually took place, and then let you either play the battle out very historically or to do it, in a free reign like they give you that option. It's driven me to go research more about the Battle of Bull Run or First Manassas. So that's good. A battle that I didn't really know a ton about, so it gave me a chance to sort of do some reading and some research into the battle itself. But being a tabletop gamer and having been a war gamer for a long time, I went kind of crazy, right? So the victory conditions are basically if the Confederates can take Centerville, they win automatically. If the Union troops can take Manassas, they win automatically. There are a few other victory conditions. There are certain towns on here that have little stars, which I think I have most of them covered up. That if you take all of them and hold them at the end of 8 o'clock turn, so it starts at 9 a.m. and it goes, the battle ends at 8 p.m. If you can hold a certain amount of things, the Union will win. Now, if I remember correctly, the Union actually lose this battle. Historically, they get driven off. The Confederates do have a lot of troops. The great thing about the Battle of Bull Run was that, and I don't say great, but it's nice sort of for a beginner, is that none of the troops were very good. This was one of the first major battles of the American Civil War. And so none of the troops were great. None of the leaders were fantastic. Some of them would go on to become very well and notable. For instance, Sherman, who we have, I think, underneath Tyler here. Oh, that's Keys. But William Tecumseh Sherman would go on to play a major part in the war, as well as a few of these other generals as well. So I've got McDowell, who's the army leader. Trying to get rid of the shadow there. Sorry. He's the army commander, and I've got him set up right at Centerville so I can trace sort of lines of command to these troops. I've separated out the troops into 2 distinct sort of columns, starting over here out of Centerville, heading to, this would be the east, yeah, right, yeah, yep, to the west, sorry, north is this way. So heading off to the west, I've got some troops moving over there. The main bulk of my army is moving down the center road to sort of encounter this. And then over here, I've got a nice column of troops as well, making their way down this road to sort of flank over here. And then I do have some troops coming over here. And I will have some reinforcements right away at the end of the movement turn coming in over here as well too. So hopefully this flank push will push me into here. I'm trying to push for Manassas. I think that's, I mean, it's an auto victory win if you can get there. So if I can push my way, these sort of flanking maneuvers into Manassas, that's kind of what I'm aiming for. What's really interesting, and something I didn't really know much about the Civil War, was the way that the armies were constructed. How sort of military strategy worked during the Civil War. I didn't have a whole lot of knowledge in that realm. Just setting up this game has taught me a lot. So for instance, you'll see over here the Confederates have these sort of like tan or brown orange pieces, and they also have gray pieces. That's because the army was actually separated into two distinct armies, the Army of Shenandoah and the I should know this off the top of my head. So the Army of Shenandoah, and trying to find it here real quickly. Of course, it's not going to tell me here on this sheet. I'm looking at the rules here. It gives me a little breakdown. Shenandoah Valley. But they were broken into two distinct armies, and they had distinct commanders between the two. So, for instance, B cannot give orders to any of the gray units. Like, he cannot give orders to Evans' brigade. He can only give orders to his own army. The Union, on the other hand, had a much more sort of concrete army structure. So we had an army, you had a commander of the army, and then you also had a breakdown of brigade command or division commanders down into to brigade commanders. So here you'll see McDowell has 4 stars, which means he's the army commander. You'll see here that Miles has 2 stars, which means he's a division commander, and you'll see over here that Blunker has 1 star, which means he's a brigade commander. So I learned a lot about sort of the army strategic setup just from playing, just setting this game up. I haven't even taken the first turn yet. Again, brand new game to me. I got this from Noble Knight Games. I've actually gotten this. I've gotten the Alexander the Great game by Avalon Hill from Noble Knight as well. So if you're like me and you're wanting to get back into some of these early sort of what I call bits and chits games, hex and counter games, please go check out Noble Knight. I bought Alexander for I think $8, so like $20 for shipping. I think I bought this for $10, and they're in great condition. Alexander, the counters had already all been punched. These ones have actually been clipped. They have not been clipped well, but they've been clipped, if you know what clipping counters means. Alexander was punched, but was not clipped at all. But all the pieces were here. That was the first thing I did, was set them all out, run down through the orders of battle, make sure all the pieces were there. It did tell me on Noble Knight that these were complete games, and I completely trust them, because they had somebody that ran through and counted all the pieces and made sure all the components were there. But Noble Knight's been really, really great to me, and they're pretty close to me too. I'm in northern Michigan. I believe they're in Wisconsin, so I got their stuff very, very quickly. I'm on an Avalon Hill kick for some reason. I'm not really sure why, but I've been doing a lot of research, and it seems like I'm kind of on the Civil War kick now as well, which is really interesting. I'm more interested in sort of American Civil War, American Revolutionary War, or Ancients, which is kind of my gig. It's kind of where my interests lie. So I've noticed that GMT Games actually has some really cool Civil War games, so I might look into them next. But I don't know, I picked Avalon Hill and just kind of ran with it. It was a name that I'd known from my childhood as well too. I've played some other Avalon Hill games, but none of the sort of hex and counter stuff. So this is kind of just a rambling off the top of my head video. I just wanted to show you the setup of how I set up my very first battle. I'm going to play through this solo, and I might come back and give you sort of an after action report when I get done. This is completely a first time learning experience. This game actually has some, the rules are actually only like 12 pages long. Yeah, 12 pages. But what's really interesting about this whole game is the most complicated part of the entire game is this command structure. And it is really actually only one page of the rules to learn this command structure. But it is really intense, and if you screw it up, your army seems to like it's going to fall apart very quickly. So I'm going to try that out right now, and I might come back with another video in a couple days to let you know how it went. So until next time, my name is Questwise. Thanks for checking out the Ages and Empires channel, and I'll catch you on the flip side. Until then, please be safe, and as always, game on.